This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
It's late, it's loud, and it's live from London. It's your host, Toby Doncaster, on the Late Late Show. With me today, I have a teacher, a pedagogue, a qualified person who teaches within the prison systems in West London. How does she get on with it? What does she do? Let's listen and find out.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello everybody, we've got a very, very special show tonight. This is actually taking place live in the studio with my guest Olga from the Prison Services in West London. We've known each other for quite some time. And Olga, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah? Has it been a long working day?
Yes, I started my working day at 5 o'clock when I left the house at 5:30.
No way.
And I was home by 7.
Good Lord. So that's well on, well, my maths isn't that sharp, but I think it's 14 hours, is
Yes.
that right? Wow. How do you find, and do you do this every day? There's this 5 till 7 malarkey, as it were?
No, it's quite, at the moment, it's unusual. My normal working would be, my working hours actually is from 8 till 5, but you start thinking about your work and leaving for work naturally. That's what I was referring to.
Oh, I see. So how many hours a week do you do?
37 hours a week is our normal working week.
Okay. And who do you work with predominantly? Is it male, female, grown-ups, young people?
I'm a curriculum manager across 8 London prisons.
Good Lord.
So prison education.
That's a lot.
So it's mainly functional skills, English and maths. Sometimes it's ESOL in some prisons where there is a population that there is a...
So there's ESOL needs and functional skills. Well, I mean, I'm a GCSE English teacher. Is there anything stopping you from teaching GCSE English and maths?
When I was 8 years before that, before this year, I was working in young offenders, in Feltham young offenders. And because it's a young people estate, there is a different funding to that.
Right.
So in young people estate, it's pretty much all qualifications are open to young people.
Right.
Adult estate is funded differently. So in terms, it's almost like a further education, but prison system, within prison system, they only do functional skills, English and maths. If they want, they can progress to open university.
Oh, wow. So from functional skills all the way up to open university.
Yes, so they do access course and they go to open university.
Right.
But this is a slightly different route. But there is I know within Prison Education Trust, there was a discussion about setting adult GCSEs for English and maths, but I don't know where they are with it.
I mean, it's a tough call. I suppose if you're an adult, then the progression could naturally go into access education, as you just pointed out. So what sort of access courses do the prison services offer?
It would be access course that offered by Open University. So lots of it would be independent studies.
Okay. All right. So there's a link with the Open University. So if there are any Open University lecturers out there that would like to join in the call, please do. All right. We'd like to hear from you, particularly with this connection with the prison services. So I'm curious, you've been in the prison service teaching managing for 9 years, you did say.
Yes.
Okay. What started this journey? Why prisons of all places?
I came for the job interview out of curiosity
Mm-hmm.
in 2016.
Yeah.
2015 actually.
2015.
Yes,
Yeah. So
I
it's
was offered
yeah.
a job in 2016 because
Okay.
vetting took a long process. It's a long
Right.
process to
Uh-huh.
get into prison education. So I went for the job interview, and it was purely out of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lovely class of 5 young men,
Mm-hmm.
GCSE standards. I was asked to teach some maths topic, I think, from what I remember, and they got engaged beautifully. And they were so curious about, they wanted to develop their knowledge further.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Mm-hmm.
such a deeply enjoyable experience. And I was, by the time I got to the car park, I was offered a job. So, but the process of actually starting a job took almost 6 months.
Wow. Okay.
However, what they did for the initial job interview, they gave me the best, most well-behaved class, which they gave separately.
They got you that
So,
way.
yes.
Yeah.
So anybody who is want to go for a job there would probably benefit from just a visit and shadowing and walking around and seeing how things really are. However, I never regretted this decision.
No. So how long were you teaching young people?
In young offenders, I worked for 8 years.
8 years. And what's the age range?
It's between 15 and 18.
Now that's interesting because I work in further education and I teach 16 to 19-year-olds. I also teach a Key Stage 4 provision. Are the classes streamed according to age or ability, or how are they streamed?
There is no sets. That's what you are referring to in terms
Sure.
of streaming. Generally, people are put into classes according to if they don't have keeper parts.
Okay.
By keeper parts, I mean that they can mix safely.
Right. Keep apart. Got you. Right. Okay. So they've got no keeper parts. All right. So they can mix safely, so they can interact within a classroom.
Yes.
So here's the interesting thing. Do you encourage students in the classroom to interact with each other? And is that successful?
No, absolutely, because most of them would come from the same unit.
Right. Okay.
So children in young offenders, there are 4 or 5 residential units. I don't know at the moment. I think 5 residential units. So within a unit, normally they can mix with each other. However, sometimes units do not mix with each other.
Okay. Different units keep apart. Gotcha.
Not always the case, but sometimes it is the case. It's unfortunate reality. It's not the case in CCAT prison in adult estates.
Okay.
But in young offenders, it is the case. So technically, in one class, you can have 15-year-old and 18-year-old. And in terms of their previous knowledge, you can have somebody who can't read and write, and it's quite often students from traveling communities.
Sure.
And then you can come somebody who has already predicted grade 9 in GCSEs.
Oh my.
So the disparity is vast.
Yeah.
And not only, also the difference in age between 15 and 18. It's almost like different species you are teaching in one class.
Yeah. I mean, there is, and there's sort of like a sense of self-knowledge and self-awareness as you mature. Hopefully you mature.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you would be. That's an interesting thought, because I'm thinking about the 15-year-olds that I work with. There's a there's a naivety about them. They're a bit naive compared to somebody who's 17 or 18. Is that the same case within the prison education system, or?
You come across 15-year-old who are very mature and very advanced both intellectually and emotionally for their age. And then you come across, now I work in adult estate, 25-year-old who are not there yet.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No,
there is no correlation between their age and maturity.
Yeah. So you can't use the numbers.
No, you can't, and you can't. You have to assess every person on their individual marriage.
Yes, sure. No,
So
you've got to get to know each person
Yeah.
individually. So, how many in a class? What's the class size?
In young offenders, it's no more than 8.
Right.
In adult estate, it's up to 12, but it also depends on the size of the room, actually.
Okay.
Because, since COVID and everything else. So,
yes. Yeah. So, 8 young people, different ages, different mental, emotional capacities, working with different levels of knowledge. I mean, that's quite a challenge.
It is.
So, how do you meet that challenge? What do you do to meet that challenge?
If you are very lucky, you will be able to form the class where they have a similar, at least they will be on a similar programs, and you can teach the same curriculum. For example, within functional skills.
Yes.
Towards the end of my work in YY, we tried to put specific GCSEs classes. Students, but the criteria that we used for GCSEs class, you need not to have a release date within a period that they can take an exam, and to be of the age where you can take the exam before you are transferred to an adult estate. So it's one of those. We didn't use any of their academic abilities at all.
Okay.
So,
I suppose the nice thing about GCSEs is that any achievement is an achievement. We're hoping for a grade 4.
Yes.
And this sounds like a silly question then. Is a grade 4 oh no, it is achievable, because you mentioned some are actually capable of a grade 9.
Yes.
Yeah, in maths and in English. So I'm just wondering, how does that transfer to the adult situation where they're doing functional skills? Do we have separation of entry 1, entry 2, entry 3, level 1, level 2, or not? How does that work?
A predominant level in adult estate is level 1.
Okay.
That's, this is main sort of a mode of levels. There are students who are E3, but they can progress to level 1. And then the frustrating thing for me about adult estate education is that expectation is generally for them to achieve level 1. That's what prison system asks you of.
Right.
Not level 2, which would be in a mainstream. It's a minimum requirement for any apprenticeship or anything else you want to do. So it's slight discrepancy between what's mainstream education outside and what it is within prison. But for them to get any jobs in prison, because they have cleaner's job and working in the kitchen, it's level 1 most of the time.
Well, they're going to need to read labels and handle measurements.
It's justified.
Like
but yes, it should be. From my point of view, we should set a bit of a higher targets, really, and minimum should be level 2, because that's what requires for normal life functioning.
That's right. But also, you mentioned the open university aspect. Yes. So for me to go into open university, I'm going to need to be able to achieve an access course, be able to complete that successfully. That requires a level 2, in fact a level 3 level of understanding, in order to be able to go to university and come out with a degree. So I've got a question then. I've got my phrase for the day actually. This keep apart.
Okay.
Okay. Do you get a lot of disruption in the? I'm thinking of the young offenders. Do you get a lot of disruption in the classroom, and how do you manage it? Do you manage it?
Yes, there is. If you are talking about low-level disruption,
Yes.
We are not talking about serious things when it requires assistance of the prison staff, which is also an option, because if you are talking about, for example, in pupil referral units, they don't have this option apart from calling police.
That's right.
Effectively,
Yeah.
In prison, if we used to say to the teachers, if you feel that you lose control of the class, as a preventative measure, actually call for staff assistance, because there is a green button on the wall, and there are 20 officers will run into your room immediately and address the issue.
I wish I could call 20 officers.
No, you don't. But the low disruption, you would deal in exactly the same way as you would deal with mainstream
school,
because if your students are engaged in what they're doing,
there
will be no disruption.
Yes.
And there will be sometimes, but also a relationship with the students, because they are going through, it's a difficult period in their life. So sometimes it would be, I cannot concentrate because I'm going to court the next day.
Sure.
So having a good relationship with your students, having a relationship of trust, which is very important when you are working in YY, they would let you know, and you would give them an option of reading a book during this time. So it's manageable, and it's in the same way like you would manage in a mainstream, I guess.
So, we've covered the disruptive bit, and you've mentioned one sort of one thing that most teachers aim for, which is the engagement levels, and I suppose what are the restrictions in a prison unit which you think, okay, we outside in further education or in high school education, we have freedoms to certain things. What sort of restrictions are there within the prison education system?
I think the main sort of the ones that teachers would feel, it's almost like you are going back in a different century, because there is no access to internet in a classroom, in young people's state especially. So you cannot show them a YouTube video on how to do quadratic equations, for example.
Sure.
Or there is less range of activities you can do with them. And even in terms of subject, for example, certain subject like science, chemistry cannot be studied within a prison system.
No, of course not.
So, but it's justifiable, but it's still a restriction.
Yes.
And not the fact that they're not learning any science restricts them in understanding of the world around them.
I was just about to ask, do they do GCSE science? But
no,
obviously
they don't.
Not.
It's because that's a difference between national curriculum outside and here in prison, is that science is not one of the compulsory ones.
So for your average young learner, what subjects, English and maths, what else do they learn?
It depends on the provider for education, because there are different providers, and it depends on their contract with establishment, of what establishment agrees their young people need. So I can say in Feltham, it was quite a good variety of subjects. There was English, maths, PSD, personal social development.
Okay.
ICT, but there was not much of ICT going on. They could do Scratch on the computer, but not much further than that in terms of coding. But then there are general developmental subjects like music and art. And also there are lots of practical subjects. They were doing some catering, or they were doing painting and decorating.
Wonderful.
So it's a variety of subjects actually for them to learn, and the skills as well.
Brilliant.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads, no distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order.
This is Teachers Talk Radio.
And we're back. I'm with Olga, a highly experienced educator within the prison education system in West London. And I'm wondering whether my audience has any questions. If you do text them in to us. Use the Podbean app. So I was just wondering, you've got students of different levels. So what do you do to, how do you assess their starting points and tailor your teaching accordingly?
That's a very good Ofsted question.
Okay.
That Ofsted loves. Yeah, I'll give you the answer that I'm supposed to give to Ofsted, and then I'll do something else about it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, go on then.
I'll refine it.
Yeah.
So obviously we'll do the BKSB assessment.
Okay.
They can do it both a paper version and they can do it online. The advantage of doing it online, because it's independent, they get to work independently, and it also will design their own learning program, so
that's true.
They can identify their gaps in learning and everything else. But the most important part of starting point when you're working in YY especially is conversation with the student. We have in adult estate, I saw it only in adult estate, but it should be used in YYs. It's a page called About You.
Yes.
And it's not used as a paperwork. It's used as a prompt for the conversation with the student.
Yes.
And the amazing things you discover about their aspirations.
Yes.
And also it's beneficial for teacher to find out how you need to teach this person, but also for a student, because sometimes when they go through the prison system, that's the first opportunity for them to be seen as a person.
That is very meaningful. I like that.
And the question, when I do the induction for new teachers, I always say, what questions would you like to ask? Do not stick to this script. Put your own questions, because it's what you want to know about the students, but also do not push it. If they don't want to answer all the questions in one go, and they just came to your class and you start asking them the questions, it's not normal. It's almost like a forced situation. You need to, if you fill this form about you, just at the beginning, at the very first couple of important bits about, it's almost like a start of a working relationship.
That's right, yeah.
So,
yeah.
But as you go on, hopefully this form will be going back to. And one of the questions that we start putting in this form, and most of them, the answers they give is quite interesting and very touching, actually. We put, I wish my teacher knew.
Wow, okay.
So it gives you so much information about their previous experience at school.
Okay.
And give us tips on how to fix it.
See, this is what I wanted to ask, which is, you know, I wish my teacher knew. What do they tell you? And if you don't mind.
No, absolutely. Sometimes you come out with because sometimes they also come to the class with a deep screen, and you know what they are already. They are
What's a GIP screen?
deep screener.
Deep screener.
Yeah, so we know the additional needs. It's almost like a SEN.
Okay.
For us, it would things that they give. It's you can't really. I'm trying to think about something. One student said, "I do not like when my teacher uses my first name."
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I've experienced that. I've had somebody come in and I said, "Oh, William." He said, "No, I want you to call me Billy." I said, "Okay." You know, and it's now become a thing, isn't it? You ask people, you know,
How do you like to be called?
How do you like to be called?
But it's this. It's a small things, but also I like when I'm learning. I like to use that particular pen. So some things are quite small, but at the same time, I don't like to be asked questions through the lesson. Ask specific questions at the lesson. I like to volunteer to answer the questions. So it's a things that could potentially destroy your relationships.
I was just thinking, you know, that would be something I'd like to apply in my own teaching in further education, because you're right. You know, I should preempt this by asking the questions from the start, saying, "Look, I want to get to know you so that I can help you, you know, support you better in the classroom. Would you mind if I ask some questions? You know, ask for permission, ask the questions, and say, look, you don't have to answer them if you don't feel comfortable. It's all good." Because what I've found in my experience is that it takes me a year to get to know somebody, by which time it's far too. Yeah, that's it. They say, "Oh, well, I've had enough of this place. I'm out of here." And you've got the freedom to go. Whereas, you know, I could be there, you know, already informed as to what I need to know and being able to build a better relationship. I think as teachers, we focus too much on how we teach rather than what is it that each learner wants from us and how we can best give that, and make us into sort of like a multifaceted sort of teacher rather than a singular, this is how I teach, this is how I do it, sit down, pay attention and learn. You know, going back to my original question, how do you manage disruption? I think what you've just shared just now is an important aspect of managing disruption.
It's knowing your students.
Yeah.
Because if you know your students, you know what triggers them negatively and positively. It gives you the idea what to do and plan your strategies, plan your lessons. Sometimes different classes would have completely different lessons on the same topic. Because one class, they just need to sit and get on with it and do this, and that particular order. And the other ones, you need to create a competition about this and divide them into two groups or something else. So knowing your students, I think it's a starting point for the teacher, actually. Because starting point, we should identify for both, for learning and for teaching. That's what it should be, actually.
So you do this with the adults, and you wish you could do this with the younger ones as well. What other strategies? How do you think teaching? What subject do you teach?
My specialist subject is maths.
Right. Okay.
But I am covering sometimes English classes, but I don't like the word covering because it sounds like I'm not teaching, which I do.
Yeah, sure.
But I would say functional skills, English and maths, but maths is my speciality.
Okay. So thinking back to, back in the good old days when you were taught how to teach, and you were taught these are all the things that you've got to do, starter, engaging activity, main course, plenary at the end, what have we learned today, what do we need to learn for looking forward, all these different theories and so on. Do they go out the window in prison education, or do you think, or have you adapted them? How have you adapted them?
I think no. All these elements of a good session or good lessons still should be there. But they should come with additional trimmings. Not the most important, but one of the before anything, it's a meet and greet.
Right.
Because acknowledging again that somebody come to your classroom, and it's almost a separation between the establishment, between a punitive system and somewhere where there is a psychological safety, there is intellectual safety. Because especially when you are teaching maths, anybody, after a certain age, we are conscious. We don't like to feel stupid. We don't like to give wrong answers. And you need to feel very comfortable of doing this. And it starts at the door. The moment they cross your door, they should feel, yes, it's okay to make mistakes. Because actually, it's a good way to start somewhere, to progress. Making mistakes is it's a part of learning.
Is that explicit in your lesson? Do you actually discuss making mistakes and how we learn from making mistakes?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And discussing different methods and adjusting different methods and working on it together. It's a part of learning.
No, true. I was just wondering whether,
I think you don't know. I don't normally discuss unless somebody did not pass the exam, and we have the conversation about how to sort of address it, but we don't turn it into something. It's not important at the end of the day. Just first try again, and you'll succeed eventually, because this is a way you build resilience, actually, and your ability to learn.
And okay, do classmates make fun of somebody when they make a mistake initially?
I wouldn't say they make fun, but they compete about who is the most intelligent one. That is such a thing, because immediately they start to think, oh, I know this answer, and they feel pride in this, which is great. I don't really see much of people making fun of making other mistakes, because I think everybody's to a degree insecure, especially in the maths class.
Yeah, sure. I think everybody is. We're talking about feeling insecure. I once asked a cousin of mine who's a very, competent music teacher. I said, could you please teach me to play the piano? And I was literally petrified of hitting the wrong key. And I froze. I found myself freezing up when I started to play something that was a little bit more challenging than just, okay, I'm just playing the scales, or I'm just doing this or just doing that. So I'm very conscious of making mistakes. And I don't know, I genuinely don't know how to break that. I don't know if I have broken it, because, I never went back to the piano again.
I think you should go back and play everything wrong and enjoy it.
Exactly that.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads. No distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. eduflix.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Schools Week reports that the government has extended a programme that boosts neurodiversity support in mainstream schools, but with less funding than its trial run. The DfE's Partnership for Inclusion of Neurodiversity Inclusion in School, known as PINS, supports neurodiverse students by training teachers to identify and better meet their needs and improves parental engagement. The initial year-long trial was announced by the Conservative government in 2023 as part of a plan for more early intervention in SEND. With a £13 million budget, it has reached around 450,000 children at 1,680 primaries, around 1 in 10 in England. It will now be extended for another year across a further 1,200 schools, where it is expected to benefit over 300,000 more children. But its funding will be £9.5 million, around 1/4 less than the original pilot. The Department for Education said this is because start-up funding in 2023 would not be needed in 2025 to 26. In January, Bridget Phillipson told her first Education Committee meeting that PINS was promising and that government wanted to roll it out further. The BBC covers government promises of more training for people aged 21 and under in England, as it presses ahead with plans to scrap funding for postgraduate apprenticeships. From January, only 16 to 21-year-olds will qualify for funding for Level 7 apprenticeships, the highest level and considered the equivalent to a master's degree. This means many higher apprenticeships would have to be completely paid for by employers. The Conservatives have previously described the proposals as a disaster. Overall, the government is promising to create 120,000 more training opportunities for young adults and those who need to retrain. It says an increase in a charge paid by employers recruiting from outside the UK will be used to create 45,000 training places. The shift is to pull funding from the highest level apprenticeships to fund Level 2 programmes. Since an apprenticeship levy for large employers was introduced in 2017, there has been a boom in higher qualifications. However, numbers of young adults starting early apprenticeships at Level 2 has fallen. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson said, "When we invest in skills for young people, we invest in a shared, stronger economic future." She also said the changes would help to address the problem of too many people not in education, employment or training. Too many people sat at home. Full details, union reaction, business reaction and comments from students can be found online. Guardian covers calls by a charity to scrap guidance for meat 3 times a week in English schools. A report published by the Food Foundation has found that children eat proportionally more processed meat than adults, with more than a third of meat eaten by children coming from processed meat such as bacon, ham and sausages. The study also found that 80% of the most commonly eaten meat dishes in schools are either processed or red meat. The current government guidance says schools should provide a portion of meat or poultry for at least 3 days a week. Food Foundation is calling for the requirement to be relaxed and that increased consumption of fruit, veg and legumes should be encouraged. Rebecca Toby of Food Foundation said, "It's worrying that children are eating so much processed meat and that relaxing the rules would let caterers offer more beans, pulses and whole grains as well as vegetables, improving health and cutting costs." A government spokesperson said, "Through our plan for change, this government is determined to give every child the best start in life. Further details of this story can be found on the newspaper's website. The BBC reports on its US and Canada feed that students around the world are anxious and in limbo as the Trump administration makes plans to temporarily halt US student visa appointments. An official memo seen by CBS News ordered a temporary pause in appointments as the State Department prepares to increase social media vetting of applicants. The changes have brought widespread uncertainty, with visa appointments at US embassies now unavailable, and delays that could leave scholarships up in the air. Some students told the BBC that they were even wishing they had applied to schools outside the US. More than 1.1 million international students from over 210 countries were enrolled in US colleges in the 2023-24 school year. Full details, including reaction from students in China, India, Wales and England, can be found on the BBC News website. Finally, Sizewell C Nuclear Power Plant has announced plans to build and open a new post-16 college, according to BBC Suffolk. Working in partnership with Suffolk New College, the new institution would be opened in September 2027. It plans to offer comprehensive multi-site education and training, and also to support up to 540 local apprenticeships. This has been Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
And we're back. I'm with Olga from the prison services in West London, and we're talking about teaching younger learners, so from 15 to 19, 18, okay, as well as the adult prison service. Olga, we've talked about, disruption, about adapting lessons, about finding out their starting points, and I found that such a valuable and interesting topic to touch on. Share some gems. Do you have any students who have achieved something outside, once they've left the prison? No, let's reframe that question. Have you been impressed by any learners, and what did they achieve?
I don't know where to start. Impressed by so many of my students, but it's not just academic achievements. But I'll talk about academic achievements that are sort of, I shared the joy with them. One of the frustrating things in prison education is that the plank is set very low for the students.
Sure.
Once they, or even with GCSEs, it's grade 4, and you pass and you're off the course effectively. We did in 2017. We introduced it's only in YY Feltham residential course for level 3 maths course for critical maths and quantitative reasoning.
Wow.
So it's effectively it's AS level.
Yes.
And it was optional. Very rarely children in prison education get an option. Maths and English are compulsory.
Yeah, sure.
So we open the option if they want to enroll for the course to do maths at level 3. We were oversubscribed. And the reason for that is because this was a nurture class. And it started actually with a team. We got together as a team. We thought we have lots of talented children, and we need to do something about this. We need to offer them more than what we were offering them. And at that stage, we were not even offering GCSEs. So we had a bit of a jump from level 2 functional skills to level 3, and then we went to GCSEs. But the way we did it, it was incredible in terms of, I'm sure I will not insult anybody because I worked with amazing professionals. But when you work in prison education and only teach functional skills, you get de-skilled.
That's right, yes.
So when we will start teaching level 3, we have to teach ourselves first and share our knowledge. And we needed to be open because we came out with some topics we never learned, not at university.
Wow.
And we worked so well as a team, not just within education, but also with prison, because prison officers got involved with the project and some of them very helpful.
Yeah.
And setting learning groups when the boys got together and studied at weekend.
Yes.
They were teaching each other through the windows, even
No
because
way.
yes. So and they were teaching each other maths in every subject they were going to. Everybody was teaching maths for the period of 3 months.
Wow.
So it was a joyful experience.
Yes.
But on the days of the exams, because there are 3 exams in this course, so on the days of the exams, the boys were describing that they were having butterflies.
Sure.
And these were the kids who never had real exams experience.
Right. Yes.
For them, it was normality, bringing some normality into their life. And I think this kind of valuable experiences. So, and what I was impressed was with the amount of work the boys put in
Definitely.
these qualifications, but also with the teachers, with my colleagues who worked with me on this project and tutored them, even came at weekend outside their working hours to work with students. And this level of dedication, you very intense teaching and learning, it felt like a community for this month. And it was very it was touching and it was enjoyable, and we felt enormous pride when the boys took the exams and when they got the results, and we celebrated it as a team. So that's probably the biggest achievement of me, as my own personal one as well.
So if you don't mind me asking, what stopped you from continuing this program of optional maths?
I think it's COVID disrupted an awful lot.
Sure.
And after this, again, we go back to keeper parts and the prison system.
Yes.
Because during COVID, the whole, people could not mix with a certain group, so they divided them into even smaller groups. They could not mix for different reasons because of the virus.
Because of the
but
virus.
Then it's very difficult to reintegrate them back into units. So it's sort of the program. It not disappeared completely. Once or twice somebody get enrolled on a course, but it's not run anymore as a project.
As a joyful experience. Yes. It's been such a wonderful experience talking to you, Olga, because you've mentioned the getting to know you questionnaire that I should be using with the students right from the start, to get to know them and to give them dignity. And I think the education system, this is going to sound very strange. I think the education system, whether it's outside or inside, in a way is a very dehumanizing process. We chase after results. We think about exams. This is all that we're focusing on, and we don't see the human aspect. But also, when you gave students an option to study something that was more difficult than what they'd had done before, they leapt at the chance to prove themselves. And, you mentioned something else about, the competition to show who was more intelligent rather than the dumbing down of education. Yeah. We're painting a very rosy picture. What sort of challenges do you find that you face within the prison education system, and how do you overcome those challenges?
Generally, we were discussing introducing higher level courses and generally to develop higher order thinking, even especially
Yes.
when you're talking maths.
Yes.
But then when you're talking Bloom's taxonomy and
Mm,
when Maslow pyramid, the basic needs are not met
sure.
for safety, for
Mhm,
example,
mhm,
it's very difficult to progress to anything further. So it's one of the, and I don't know the answer to that, how to overcome it. Because if the students feel safe
That's it.
in their everyday life,
Yes.
and all their basic needs are met, then you can start teaching them. But in your classroom, you have a power to set certain things, like they could be, it's a place of psychological safety. It's a place where you would be trusted,
Yes.
and the person, you could trust the person as well who is there. That is crucial, actually, because once you build a relationship, trust with your students, you can do a lot.
It's interesting. I've seen this in several institutions that I've visited, further education institutions, and they talk about being ready to work, being respectful, and feeling safe. And somebody said to me, well, actually, safety should come first. And you've just mentioned it just now, the need to feel safe. I'm thinking maybe to feel a sense of dignity in yourself is important. And then you feel self-confident and you've got the self-esteem to pursue learning.
But something interesting you mentioned, you said the system is dehumanizing. And I don't know how to address it, because the system is the system. But I think for education, I'm not sure, because I don't work in mainstream education, but I think it turned from a public service, which it should be, into a business model. And that's why we are so result orientated.
That's it.
But business model, that is a bit which dehumanizes people, actually. Because because obviously we should not run in a free flow and do whatever we like without any plan. We should have a plan, but it should be, if it is a public service, the service should be at the front, because all these organizations, they put values at the top of the things, but this value seems to disappear, and they don't match the business needs.
Speaking of values and, dehumanizing, I mean, I think education itself is a bit of a downer at the moment. How do you maintain such a positive attitude? I see a positive attitude. How do you maintain your well-being and resilience in face of, these adverse conditions?
I think, did you read the book When the Adult Change, Everything Changes?
I have not read that book.
You haven't?
No.
Okay. It's the concept, I find.
Okay.
The concept, it's modeling behavior, but also synchronizing with your colleagues, because if you build a sort of community, teaching and learning community, then you are on the same wavelength as other people.
Right. Okay. So it's back to that team thing that you were talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. We do things as a team, and if we face each other as a team and we work together as a team, then better things happen.
I think so. But also, yes, working together with colleagues will help you to keep your spirit up, because if you have a good team, and it also having good leaders, because it starts, and people who lead you, they set the right tones.
So, what if you don't have good leaders? Or what if you have leaders who are pursuing their own agenda? What do you do then?
I don't know.
You're right.
I don't know.
So anyway, how do we pursue, having a good team, without the leadership? And I suppose it's to my mind, it's almost like it needs something from externally to sort of bring in that sort of change. You need not powerful leaders, strong leaders, conscientious leaders, empathetic leaders,
somebody who yes, who you can trust. Again, goes back to trust an awful lot.
Definitely.
And aspirational ones.
So we've talked about, so you can't go back on your answer now. If there's one thing you could change within the prison education system, what would it be and why?
It would not be specific, because changing the aspirations for people who are there.
Yes.
Because even when I speak to the students sometimes, and then when they come, I said, well, what they actually have when they're in prison is that they have time.
Yes.
So they can either kill time and just waste your life and do the time. Sometimes there is an expression to do the time, isn't it? Or they can use the time, they can come to classes and they can do the work and get their level 1 and go back and do some unit work. Or they can really invest their time in themselves. And I think if they invest their time in themselves, this is probably the most valuable thing. They can use the time, because once they come out, they won't have this luxury of investing in themselves. They would need to take care of certain things. They would need to take care of bills, get a job, do this and that. They're given opportunity to explore what their interests are, invest, do their research in some ways within educational system or within library, using all sorts of resources.
So here's the question then: How do you encourage people to invest in themselves? How have you encouraged people to invest
I think by
themselves?
giving option is one of these.
That's right, yeah.
Yes, because if there is no option and there is no knowledge of where to go, for example, lots of, especially in young offenders, 75% of children there are on long sentences.
Yes.
So there is no point for them to teach them how to write a CV.
No.
Because by the time they come out, AI will write a beautiful CV for them.
That's right.
But what they can invest their time is in study skills, because they're given opportunity a certain amount of years to study and to complete not just one degree in open university, but a couple of degrees, but also to find out what they're really interested in, if they're really interested in art, or if they're really interested in, I don't know, maths.
It's to develop their interests and passions.
It's something that will pull them through this time, but also it wouldn't be a waste of time. It would be time they're using to improve themselves.
Yeah. Olga, it's been such a pleasure having you here. I think we've come to, the finale, what I call it, invest in yourself. And, it's almost a rose-tinted image of what prison education is like. But I think it's down to people like you that make it possible.
Thank you.
That people feel that they can invest in themselves. I think you're offering a real valuable public service, as you called it.
Thank you. It's a very kind invitation. I enjoyed that.
Thank you for joining us. And To my audience, I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.